All right, Jason, thank you. Welcome to the JumpSearch Talent Show podcast. I really appreciate your time and being here, and I'm really excited to dive into learning more all about your experience, but also, how it relates to what's going on today, some of the trends, and leaving our audience with something that they can walk away with that can help them and some of the challenges that they're seeing today. Today, audience, I'm really excited to welcome Jason Cormier. He's the founder of the AI Marketing Forum, IMF, a community-powered learning and coaching platform where he helps organizational leaders, marketers, and entrepreneurs leverage AI to grow their careers and their companies. With 18 years plus of experience running Room 214, a digital marketing agency serving brands like Verizon, Adobe, Sanrio, Jason has pivoted toward a more community-driven and human-centered model, which I'm very excited to explore with you, Jason. Through AIMF and his mutual intelligence framework, Jason guides leaders on how to use AI more meaningfully while staying different, not just better. He's a passionate advocate of video-first communication, personal branding, and the future of marketing through community-based ecosystems. So that's a mouthful. And welcome, Jason. I'm really happy that you're here, and thank you in advance for spending time with me and our audience. Anything to add to that?
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully there'll be some nuggets for some people here. No, I mean, I think you covered it pretty well. My career spans the course of 30 years right now. I've started a lot of companies. I've failed more than I've succeeded, and we can talk about both.
All right, awesome. I mean, I'm really interested in sort of the struggles, because that's where the rubber meets the road, right? And there's a lot of things that are evolving these days. Speaking of road, like a lot of folks are trying to figure out what their footing is and figuring out which way is up. And amidst the change and the chaos, I think there's a lot of opportunity. And so would love to hear what you're kind of seeing. Maybe we could start a little bit with community-based marketing. This is something that you're no stranger to. I mean, I think, based on what I know about your background, you've been working with community-based marketing before it was called community-based marketing, something to the tune of 2014-ish. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and with Social Engine. And maybe you could share with the audience, like, what people are calling today community-based marketing, and what is it and why is it a thing, and how is it relevant to folks out there today?
Yeah. I think, kind of just providing a helpful background. I'll just tell you, I got really lucky. My business partner and I started a digital marketing agency in 2004. And so, by the time 2007 came around, Facebook wasn't just for college kids anymore. Twitter was this new thing. And we made this one big, bold move. We planted our stake in the ground and said, we're a social media agency, and started talking about that and writing about that, using that terminology. And so the reason that was lucky is because, when we started the company, there was no social media, right? That term, I don't think, was actually used until 2007. But the reason I bring it up is because there was a lot of excitement around what that meant, right? It was like the idea of social media was global community and niche groups. And, I remember in 2012, Facebook Groups was thriving. It was this amazing platform. And then things kind of went south once their advertising model kicked in. For those of us who remember, Facebook was not making money for a very long time. And it was very fun at that time. What we got to see was that folks that joined these groups, and even just folks that followed brands on Facebook, there was some real awesome community interaction. Everybody saw everybody's posts. There was a lot of collaboration. There was a lot of excitement. And so that started to wind down because of the advertising. And so, and I'm getting to your question, Eric, just kind of providing some of the background.
Sure.
And this is relevant to Social Engine as well. So we got to a point where it was like, with advertising, there was less and less of this community aspect, right? People helping people, neighbors helping neighbors, if you will. And so we had come across this company called Social Engine, which was a Techstars startup. So folks that are familiar with Techstars, like a Y Combinator, but earlier to the party. This awesome platform, Social Engine, was incredible. It was growing. The problem was Facebook Groups was starting to eat this platform's lunch. And so as Facebook Groups got more popular, this company, Social Engine, started going south. But because of the advertising that was happening, my business partner and I looked at that platform and said, gosh, if we could introduce to our clients this platform, as a way to grow online community without dealing with the advertising aspect, wouldn't that be cool? And we actually had Sanrio as a client at the time. We helped them basically set up their Facebook page from almost day zero. They had about 50 other people who had Facebook pages that were saying they were Sanrio, right? Hello Kitty.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we worked with Facebook. We went in, cleaned that up, set up their Facebook community. And like before we knew it, bam, something like over 3 million followers. It was crazy. But of course, those followers started being exposed to advertising, and Sanrio, anytime they did a post on their Facebook page, it was being throttled down. Their full audience wasn't getting it.
Yeah.
And so we approached them and said, hey, you know what? There's this platform called Social Engine, and we wanted to buy it because it was going down. So it was on sale. And kind of the gold at the end of the rainbow was the fact that, Sanrio raised their hand. They said, yeah, that's awesome. Let's screw these Facebook guys.
Yeah.
Let's have our own private community. Let's get this going. So we bought the company, and I'll just tell you, long story short, Sanrio had great intent, but different circumstances happen, things change, and they never did follow through on that effort. And so that left us holding the bag on this community platform and being forced to really understand the inner workings of a software platform that supports online communities, and what really works and what really doesn't, and what gets people to not just sign up, but not churn, to stay active in the community. Yeah. And so that was kind of the foray into really learning what works inside of a community, and painfully learning that if you're not a software developer, or you don't have a team of great software developers on board, and you buy a software company, you're probably going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So we struggled with that company for a long time. But again, back to the community aspect, we learned a lot in terms of just how people would collect around certain interests and really spend a great deal of time in that online community. And so fast forward, ran the marketing agency for 18 years before I sold my shares in January of 2023. A couple things happened before starting the AI marketing forum. But once I started the AI marketing forum, it was like, okay, where do I begin? And I could have just gone out and been like a normal consultant. And not that there's anything wrong with that. But part of what I was thinking about is, how can you be truly different and not just better than everybody else out there? And Eric, I know we've talked about that too, principles of category design, and we can get into that. But the community platform was something that just stood out for me. And having a bit of a give first mentality that was like, you know what, I'm going to pour my heart and soul into this thing. I'm going to create courses. I'm going to offer a lot of free stuff. And hopefully, it'll be validated, because if it's good enough, people won't only join, but they'll actually engage.
Yeah.
And so, that was probably 15 months ago where I launched that community. And then, there's over 900 members in there now, and it's been good. And, I would say to anybody who wants to launch a business, definitely think in terms of a 3-year plan. You could look at my community, for example, and be like, Jason, 100 people, that's nothing, and I might agree with you on some days, but think about it in terms of 3 years. And now, you're building a platform for yourself, and you're positioning yourself as an authority.
Yeah.
And that's always a great thing to do from a personal branding perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry if I drifted off there. I've got a lot of thoughts and things I feel like I can share with folks, but maybe you can reel me in a bit, Eric.
Yeah. So maybe we can drill into that a little bit. It sounds like, when you're starting a community, so what are some of the principles, right? This idea of creating a community around maybe a certain ICP. Well, what is sort of the unifying draw of a community, and how do you sort of position that, especially if you're early on, right? If you're early on and you might not necessarily know your product market fit, how do you message that to the community in terms of what the community is about? If you're still trying to figure out what is my offering and what is my niche, how do you do that?
Yeah, well, I would definitely say figure that out first if you can, and then what you do is you'll validate that with the community. So it's like always begins with what's in it for them, and it's like any good marketing, it's kind of the hook. So like with the AI marketing forum, exponentially increase the value of AI for your company and career.
Yeah.
That's the quick hook. And so that's got to be interesting to me, right? It's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to learn AI with this. And so, you can get into other marketing things like unique mechanisms and, building a framework for yourself to really support like how you might be different, because people are interested in different, that's for sure. Different sticks.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes if you're able to, shine a light on something that is very much the status quo in the way that everybody's doing it, and then position that as if that's kind of the old way of doing things. And here's what you've figured out, here's what you've had to learn or earn along the way, and build a story around that. People are receptive to that. And the story captures the imagination. People self-actualize. They hear your story and they will naturally put themselves in it.
Yeah.
And so if you've got something authentic to offer, or even if you don't, and it's just an idea you have that you're trying to develop, fine. Perfection is your enemy, right? And so put something out there. Ultimately, the community will validate it. People will comment. And by the way, the community, it can look like 2 or 3 people to begin with.
Yeah.
Great. Everybody's opinion matters in the beginning, especially.
Yeah.
And so I think that, the community that the platform, the idea of starting with a community really provides a lot of upside in terms of very quickly harnessing the opinions of others, what the progress that they're trying to make. The number one thing that I would coach people on focusing on is when you're working with others, you want to laser into what is the progress that they are trying to make.
Yeah.
And there's so many reasons that thread of thinking is important. If you look at like, people that have goals, life goals, people that are in jobs, the number one reason I would say people just throw their hands and give up, it is the feeling that comes with a lack of progress. That's why. That's the reason. And so if you can create some sort of community environment or business that is able to just cut to the chase and address what is the progress you can help people along with, and it's easily understood, and it looks like, it doesn't require too much brain power. Think in terms of how can you do more with less time, less effort, less money.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the magic ingredients, right?
I'd like to sort of drill in a little bit in terms of your journey from 0 to 900, right? And what that, I guess, what's some of the learnings and maybe sort of pitfalls, like things you would do differently if you did it again. It feels like 900 it's a great number. It's some, you have to start somewhere, right? And most people have to start at 0, right? And let's say 0 to 50 or 0 to 100. How is that different from going from 100 to 500? And like, what are some of the learnings that you've taken from that journey?
Yeah. A couple things come to mind. One is it's really important to give people a clear path. So like if you join the community, what you'll see is a welcome message, and basically like, here are the 3 steps that you take. It's like, great, you joined. Now what? Are you just supposed to linger in there and figure it out? Ideally, no. Ideally it's like 1, introduce yourself. 2, review the community guidelines. Don't be spammy. Don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Number 3, check out the classroom. Jump in there. Take a free course. Kick the tires. Number 4, subscribe to our email newsletter. Stuff like that. So I feel like if you give people just a few steps to follow, that's super helpful, right? Because a lot of times what you want to do is you want to get people engaged sooner than later, and you want to keep them engaged, right? And it's oftentimes the simple things, right? I always say that big doors swing open on small hinges, right? And so that's so applicable to so many things in life. So like, for example, tell people to bookmark your community and throw it up in the browser bookmark area, where you can actually see it, not hidden in the bookmarks, but like on the bar, right? It's like, well, how easy is that?
Yeah.
If somebody takes that recommendation, by the way, there it is. Now your community, every time their browser's open, it's just like visibly 1 click away, right? So it's the little things like that you learn as you go. I think the other thing that is helpful, and I would say this goes from 0 to 50, and then even more so as you grow. It's really important to show up. It's funny, my business partner James and I at the agency, we used to always tell our coworkers, you know what? 90% of life is just showing up, and so many people don't.
Yeah.
And so you do all this work to launch something. You're not done, right? You can't just be like, I'm so glad I did that, and now I'm gonna, check in once a week. No.
Yeah.
You got to really nurture it, right? And when I say nurture it, I don't mean, the difference between like the kind of community that we're talking about versus like LinkedIn, for example. If you look at LinkedIn and Facebook groups, these are essentially rented properties that you're in, right? And you are beholden to the algorithm and the changes that may or may not help you. Most likely not. So the whole idea of paying for a private community. So for example, I'm on the school platform, and I pay $100 a month, right, to maintain that community. But I own all of that data, right? Email addresses, information people share. And so one way to consider it too is that this is not a waste ground for me to copy my social media posts that I'm doing and then just throw that in my community and think that's going to be good.
Yeah.
And I think that's also an important distinction when it comes to showing up, right? It's like on LinkedIn, we're all trying to, for those of us who post on LinkedIn, we're trying to be smart about how we do it, the algorithm that's in place. There's a whole methodology. You don't just copy that on LinkedIn and throw it in your community and think that you've done a service for everybody, right? It's really more of questioning how I can help the members in the community. It's more highlighting people that have, maybe responded with a comment to something that I posted.
Yeah.
Plus there's a direct message function too. So I can just reach out to people in the community and say stuff like, hey, just want to say thanks for joining the community. Want to touch base with you. Want to let you know that just because I run this community, it's part of my business and I'm running these workshops that you can pay for and all this other stuff, doesn't mean you just can't reach out to me at any time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of it, so much of it is being available, and then showing up on video is a huge, I can't say enough about that.
This kind of reminds me a little bit about Don. Are you familiar with Don Miller? He's
Donald Miller. Yeah. Story brand.
Yeah. And he has this approach called brand story. And he talks about this archetype of being a guide or like a Sherpa. And you are the guide, like you in this case with your community, like you are the guide, and that's helping the folks in your community sort of be the hero of their own story, right? And I always loved sort of his approach to positioning that. But so in terms of like building out your community, it sounds like you take a very active role, especially early days, in terms of being there for your community, being a guide. And it sounds like folks are attracted to your community because they want to learn about AI, they want to learn about marketing and how it's relevant to their business. And how has your community sort of evolved and maybe taken a life of its own as it's grown? Like, what have you done to kind of either nurture that or just kind of be hands off to letting it take a life of its own? Because I can imagine, when the community is small, for example, you're one of 50 people in the community. I mean, yes, you're the leader of the community, but as it grows to 500 or 900 now, yes, you still have a big voice, but other people have a voice as well because they're helping each other. So I'm just curious about like how you've seen the community sort of take on its own culture, and how have you nurtured or not that?
Yeah. I mean, I think what you see is that it's a small percentage, but there's always other people that are eager to share and to learn, right? And are unafraid to share and express their points of view inside of the community.
Yeah.
And so that is where things begin to evolve, where you actually take a look at, like I've got a few people in my community that they're prolific, right? So the community platform, it's got a leaderboard function, and you can see, everybody can see like who's most active in this community.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting about that is, somebody who runs it too, like you have to look at what they're saying and ask yourself, wow, does this align with, what we're trying to put forth in this community? And that's really interesting, right? Because sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't.
In some ways, you're a moderator.
Yeah, you
right.
become a bit of a moderator, right? And then it's like, uh-oh. I mean, I've had folks come in and, so many of the people in my community, they're business owners, rightfully, they're wanting to promote their services and talk about that kind of stuff. Well, guess what? I mean, that's against the rules. Self-promotion is just, that's not what we're there for, really. Yeah. But there's a smart way to do that. If you are giving value to somebody, and it just so happens that, maybe you share like a deck or a PDF or some sort of cool app that you've produced or whatever, Well, in the corner, if your domain name is on that thing, or great, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's funny because there was one person in the community who I felt like had kind of a competitive nature with me. And so that's another thing, you know, you start looking at yourself and getting all weird about stuff. And it's like, no, you do have to maintain a really an abundance mentality. You have to remember there's enough work for everybody to go, you know, it's going to go
Yeah.
around. Nobody's going to eat your lunch.
Yeah. Sort of that give first mentality, almost freemium, right? So what is the model? And are you helping other folks in your community if they wanted to build their own community for their specific niche? Is that something that you provide guidance with as well?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about the school platform is that it's got a great affiliate element built into it.
Yeah.
So you actually have many communities inside the school platform that are built and succeeding just based on other people building communities, right? And it's just an affiliate, you know. So what's interesting about that is like the answer to your question is yes. I've helped other people set up communities, not because that's my business model, but because like, you know, of what I've learned along the way. And it's like, hey, you know, if I get $40 a month for the life of them, you know, having their community, cool.
Yeah.
I'm paying less than 100 a month, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think that, you know, as far as the model for me, just so people understand too, because it's like, you know, my own mother will be like, so wait a minute, you've got like 900 people and they're free. What are you doing? And so, you know, it's a numbers game, all right? I recognize that maybe anywhere from 3 to 5 people out of every 100 that join might actually be interested in buying something from me.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, this gets into the offer. What does the offer look like? And so for me, I have, as of today, I have paid workshops that I roll out. They range from $47, you know, on the low end to $297.
Yeah.
And these are workshops that, you know, a couple hours, 3 hours. I've done one over you know, how to build custom GPTs over like 3 days, where it's like
Yeah.
75 minutes a day. So, cool, right? But then beyond that, because, you know, you've got to have a pretty critical mass to be and enough people to sign up for that stuff to make money off of that. Beyond that, I'll do in-person workshops. So that's more of the higher ticket offer. That can be
Yeah.
$7,500 to $10,000. Full
Okay.
day, a half day, multi-day. And then there's just consulting engagements too. Someone's like, you know, a CEO will be like, hey, Jason, can you hang with me for 90 days? We'll get on the phone twice a week on a Zoom call, teach me what I need to know. I'll throw some marketing stuff at you. It's almost like fractional chief AI officer, fractional CMO type stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, you got to be careful about how you allocate your time, but that's the model, just so people understand. And the reason I think it's important to share is because the freemium side, you do give it all away in so many ways.
Yeah.
You know, the more you hold back, the less attractive that avenue is for people.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying you can't hold certain things back and charge for them. I'm a huge fan of charging money for your time and for what you do, but you really do want to give the best that you can upfront. That's been my experience.
Let's shift gears here a little bit, Jason, and talk a little bit about video. You're obviously passionate about video, and you think there's a lot of ways that it can create connection. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen video be as sort of the role and how folks can start to leverage that, either in terms of building their business or just furthering their own personal brand?
Yeah. So it's funny because I feel like one of the more exciting things, conversations that I had about video, Eric, was actually with you. You inspired a LinkedIn post that I put out there and it went semi-viral, if that's fair to say. But, you know, that post was all about, it was your advice. You know, it was the fact that you recognize, gosh, if people put a QR code on their resume,
Yeah.
boy, that's a different point of interest. What the heck is this? If I'm somebody who's reviewing tons and tons of resumes, I see that. I might just take out my phone and scan it. And lo and behold, if someone's actually made a video, amazing, right? That's different. And I think, you know, the thing about video is it is all about the feeling that you might know, like, and trust somebody before you even meet them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, right? If you're a name on a resume, no matter how great that resume is, what do I really feel like I know about you
Yeah.
versus if I see you on video, right?
Yeah.
So there's a great book by Chris Voss called Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if Your Life Depends on It.
Yeah.
Chris was like a former hostage negotiator, brilliant communicator, and has really made his career out of consulting, around effective communications. And part of what he's been able to do is conduct research alongside Harvard University. And the research around what is effective communication is fascinating. And this goes straight to the heart of your question. What Harvard and Chris learned together is that effective communication is only 7% of the words that we say. You could say the words that we write. It's 38% tone of voice, and it is 55% body language. This is a profound thing to think about, because even if it's 50% off, it is still so significantly meaningful, right? I mean, if you think about what's happening in our society and the way that our society has been functioning for years, let me just show you, let me demonstrate with my body language. This is my imitation of our society. This is what it looks like. We're all looking down at our phones. And how are we communicating? Through words, mostly, in an asynchronous manner, right? The tone of voice has gone missing. The body language is gone, right? It's like, no wonder we're having so many problems as a society. No wonder why people are feeling so disconnected, regardless of this, mirage of community that we have through social media. Anyway, not to go off on that, but what I will say, and again, back to the heart of your question, is that video is the answer. I mean, it is the closest next best thing to being in person with somebody. And what's amazing about it as well is that very few people take advantage. There's a good reason for that, but I'm just saying so it makes it a golden opportunity if you do.
Totally. And I think based on my experience in working with a lot of candidates and people that are looking for the next opportunity and looking to sort of pattern interrupt, I think the mental block is maybe, for lack of a better term, a shyness about being recorded and having that recording of the video out there. When I started this podcast like a year and a half ago, there's been a bit of an evolution, at least on my part. I'm kind of self-conscious about seeing myself on video. For better or for worse, and I know I need to do this, I don't watch past episodes of my podcast, because I start zooming in on like what I should have said or why I came across like this or how many or I could have phrased my question better. And I should do it so that I can learn. But there's a self-conscious part. That's the point. There's a self-conscious part. And the folks out there that can get over that self-conscious part and be sort of an early adopter and really leverage video as a medium, as a channel for basically expressing themselves, right? And getting their presence out there, are at a competitive advantage over the folks that aren't willing to do that. Now, step in AI, and I want to pick your brain here a little bit, Jason, because if I'm camera shy, which I still am a little bit camera shy, I'm learning to deal with it. You have these new technologies out there that, I don't need to record myself anymore to make a video of myself. I can maybe train it or have it look at samples, and I can give it a script. And now it's a talking head of me, but it's AI generated. Like, where are we? Where's the technology now? And how do you see that influencing or creating opportunity for people that might be maybe camera shy? Because that's been a barrier, right? It's been a barrier to entry in terms of having videos of, yourself out there, and the people that do it, I think they get some advantage. But where are we with the state of that technology, and how can people start to maybe leverage that if they have that mental block or that camera shyness?
Sure. Yeah. I'll start by saying, the fear factor is by far the most common thing, certainly, that prevents people from doing this. When you think about what's available from a technology perspective, there's a lot of levels, right? And there's a lot of, I would say, misconception, what is actually possible. There are things that, well, I'll talk about that in a second, but let me start by saying there are things you can do that will help you overcome the challenges using AI at a very basic level. And so, for example, Descript is a platform that will actually do eye correction, meaning that if you're taking a video of yourself and let's say you're reading a script, problem with reading a script often is that you're not looking at the camera like I am now.
Yeah.
Right. I'm looking down at my script. My eyes are kind of, going back and forth across the paper. People can tell all of a sudden I've lost some authenticity in this. And it's just like, this guy's just reading. Nobody wants to be read to.
Yeah.
And so what's ironic about that is that's what's happening most of the time. Like the people that really have the big YouTube channels and that are really highly effective, they're on script fully. But just like newscasters, they're doing it in a way they've gotten used to it. They're casual, they're
Yeah.
comfortable, they can go off slightly, right? But my point is, at a base level, you've got technology that is AI powered that can really help you overcome some of these things. And so a teleprompting type of script where even that it works on your phone really well, eye correction, and then even like removing ums and ahs, stuff like that. Right. So that's kind of the level one, if you will. Now, above and beyond that, and what people are really excited about is this idea, well, I'm going to create an avatar of myself. I'm going to go to a platform like Hey Gen. I'm going to feed it, images of me. I'm going to do some sample recording of myself on video, and it's going to create a digital twin of me. And I'm going to be able to just automatically send a script. And then all of a sudden it's going to pop open and it's going to be me and nobody's going to know that that's not me. It's like, yeah, we're not that far yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet. And you can see some renderings that are certainly better than others. And certainly a lot of people are fooled by what is AI generated, who may not know what to look for, or who may not know the individual that is talking to them on screen, which is the AI, I mean. So it's headed in that direction. There's no reason to believe that it's not going to get there at this point, but it's not quite there, right? We're dealing with, what's the term? Uncanny valley, where you see something, it's AI generated. And so you're kind of more spooked and weirded out by it than you are impressed and thinking, oh my gosh, I could do this.
Yeah.
So,
this begs a question, and this is a nice example. The technology is moving really fast, right? And so, I think between you and me, we've sort of developed this skill of feeling more comfortable on camera than maybe most folks, right? But there's a large majority of folks that are not really comfortable on camera, and so they might be missing out on, the benefits of creating these videos. Now, it for me anyway, it took a little bit of time, effort, and making mistakes and just some dedicated energy to getting comfortable on camera, or more comfortable anyway. So the question is, if I'm uncomfortable with being on video, should I just wait for the technology to get to a point where I can just feed it whatever I need and it could basically represent me as a video digitally? Or do I actually put the effort into trying to actually be comfortable on video, right? Because the technology is moving quickly. And is it worth my effort to actually develop those skills when I know the AI can compensate for that? I'm just throwing this out there in 12 months, 24 months, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting
what skills
question.
do I develop versus I'll just wait.
I mean, it's an interesting question. And I think, to the I'll just wait folks of the world, that's often that's not just applying to video, it's applying to a realm of other things where you've got a lot of people that are, I'll just wait.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of action, right? I believe your progress is based on about 20% of the insights that you pick up, but 80% of the actions that you take, regardless of what we're talking about. That's how progress happens. And so there are other benefits. By the way, all it is practice. I don't care if you've got a mobile device and not a video camera, use that as your video and just, I don't care if you got to prop it up against books or whatever. If you don't have a little gadget to be fancy, right? Just start recording yourself, start with think, okay, I want to talk about, 3 lessons I've learned along the way in X, Y, and Z, or heck, start with 1 lesson with 3 supporting points, whatever the case may be. Script it in terms of just notes or sticky notes. Don't read it, but get that thing dialed down and start with that. I'm talking about a production that's 5 minutes or less, as a way, just as a means to practice. The thing about that is beneficial, it goes beyond just getting comfortable on camera. What's interesting is that as you practice on camera, you do notice how often you say, there's all the annoying things that stand out to you like crazy. What happens is you start to correct those things because they're driving you crazy. Well, that translates over into normal conversations that you have with other human beings, be it on a phone call, a Zoom call, or just in a conversation. And guess what? That improves you as an individual who appears intelligent to others as an extra benefit.
Yeah.
And so I think that there are definitely, in terms of your clear communication, your ability to deliver a message with clarity, practicing on video is naturally going to aid in that effort.
I love that. Going back to a word you used earlier, authenticity and tech, right? When you compare and contrast, like let's say I create a video, I don't know, a video of myself pitching myself that I could include a QR code on my resume for. And let's say I do that myself, right? There's a certain level of, I don't know if you want to call it error or lack of polish, but that lack of polish is not oftentimes it's not a liability. It's actually more of what you might lose in terms of lack of polish, you gain in terms of authenticity. And people see that you're human. And there's a level of connection there that, in contrast, like if I were to create a video of myself using some sort of AI, there will be some sort of lack of polish, which usually comes across as the viewer knowing that it's AI generated. Right. And that's the lack of polish right now. And that lack of polish is, I think, more of a liability in the sense that you don't gain the authenticity knowing that, as a viewer, knowing that there was somebody behind that making a mistake. Right. And so just there's a benefit, I think, to recording yourself. It's not completely polished. What you might lose in terms of polish, you have ums or whatever, you gain because the recipient, the viewer knows that, oh, this person is human. And they can relate to me. They can relate to it because they also probably say ums or whatnot, right? And so that was just something that came out when we were talking here, and you mentioned authenticity earlier. And there's, I don't think that the goal in terms of recording yourself and putting yourself out there is a completely 100% polished video with no ums or ahs or whatever you deem to be polished. Because humans are not 100% polished, right?
Yeah, it's very true. Back to Chris Voss and Harvard research. I mean, one thing to remember, and this is where AI, I think, doesn't do the job yet either, is the tone.
Yeah.
I learned early on from early hosting podcast days that even though I thought I sounded exciting when I was interviewing folks for the podcast that I ran back in the day, when I'd listen to myself over again, and this was not even video, this was just, audio, I was like, oh my gosh, I sound so boring. Right. And so there's an opportunity to work on your energy because the tone of voice is really important. And so that's just stuff that you can do that on camera. There's so many ways you can do that. But if you were just to focus on that one thing, to your point about authenticity and how you show up now, like, hey, if effective communication is 38% tone of voice and 7% the words I say, if there's any shred of truth to that, again, even if it's 50% off, that means I better be focusing on the energy that I'm bringing, right? I better rise up. A trick that we used to do before interviewing people on the podcast is we'd step back and we would laugh. It'd be like a fake, it'd be like, ah, ha, ha, ah, ha, ha. And it sounds goofy as hell, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, guess what? You're getting the energy level up, right? So there's all kinds of little just goofy tips and tricks like that, but that kind of stuff makes a difference.
It reminds me of Tony Robbins. He does this thing before he goes out on these, 6-hour, 8-hour seminars. He jumps on a trampoline. That's one of his little things behind stage. He jumps on a trampoline for X amount of time because he believes that, and I think it's true, that motion creates emotion, right? And so forcing yourself to laugh, that's the motion, but it will create the emotion, and so I thought that was fascinating. The other thing too is like when you think about doing videos as an exercise to get better at that, one thing that I've found is my interactions with ChatGPT, I've been able to develop more precision in my words and my requests, and that is something that, I think in normal course of working, when you're working with, maybe a team member or whatnot, you get a certain amount of cycles. But when you're interacting with ChatGPT, for example, almost on a minute by minute basis, the cycles are so much faster in terms of request and response. I've found that it's really helped me with my precision with words. It's been amazing. So that's just a thought that came to my mind in terms of how, you can interact with AI or creating videos. Like there's still benefit, even though at some point, the technology will get to a point. It's a moving target, right? The technology will, I don't want to say make those skills obsolete, but yeah, maybe you can understand what I'm trying to say here. There's still value in learning, right? Even, there's still some value in knowing how to do math, even though we have calculators, right?
No doubt. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to your point about communicating with ChatGPT, I've been in the habit over the last several months of essentially speaking to my computer, right? In many areas where I would normally just type, and AI is one
Yeah.
of those. Why? Because on average, we speak 3 times faster than we type.
Yeah.
Now, the things that we speak are different than the things that we type. And it has really been interesting to get into the habit of telling verbally ChatGPT and other AI platforms what I want and seeing then how I can see my words right after I speak them.
Yeah.
And so I've got the opportunity to edit, to quickly recognize where I could improve my communication. And what I would tell you is just, in my own experience, that is another area where that improves my communication and conversation with people.
Yeah. Yeah. I want, before we hop off here, Jason, I want to talk a little bit about, shifting gears here again, talking a little bit about what you see as sort of the future of careers, right? Because things are changing rapidly. We're in a place right now where AI is starting to get, well, it's getting better and better, and its applications are becoming more adopted. And effectively, it's starting to replace people and jobs. We're seeing that. A lot of people are maybe not talking about it, and some people are dismissed as fear mongers around it. But what do you see as sort of the evolution of the job? And in what role do you see entrepreneurship sort of playing in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the evolution of the job, I think that there's a growing body of evidence regarding why anybody who wants a job these days should be investing some of their time into learning more about AI, right? Being AI literate, being AI forward, pick your terminology. The reality is this is the future. Just like, in the 90s when it was like, hey, guess what? Maybe we should get internet access in our home.
Yeah.
Maybe we should learn how to use some of these applications that are internet enabled. I mean, it really is that all over again.
Yeah.
I think we're past the point of people thinking, well, this is just a fad or this is just going to go away or whatever. I think we're past that. So, but to the earlier point about making progress, you might have the insight on that. The question is, what is the action you're going to take now that you know that? Just this week, I believe there was something published regarding the CEO of Amazon, basically communicating a message to all of the employees at Amazon.
Yeah.
Part of what he was saying was, AI is completely transforming our business. That's great. Transparently, there will be less people needed to do what we are doing today. Now, there will be more people needed in other areas that we're unaware of yet, but I don't think he sugarcoated it. But the other thing that he said that really stood out to me was just straight up get yourself into some AI workshops. Learn how you might use AI in your job, in your life. So this is a fundamental call to action that is really important for people to pay attention to. I can tell you that even as somebody who is immersed in this day in and day out, I am easily overwhelmed. So if that's the case for me, I don't expect that it's going to be a lot different for people that are just starting to scratch the surface right now. But here's the thing, there are tons of resources that are available to you. You just got to take the first step.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is a great call to action and a great way to sort of button up our conversation here because, Jason, thank you for what you do. I think you're playing a very important role in terms of helping to up-level folks and introduce AI to them. It's a service to our society because people need to understand, policymakers, people that are presumably overwhelmed and they're just like, oh gosh, this is too much. It's too technical. It's too this, it's too that. Having sort of on-ramps for them to start to learn, start to apply, and start to really make changes and really integrate that fully into their personal and professional lives and ultimately into our society is very, very, very important. This technology is moving way fast, and I think we as a society need to be able to keep up with what we're creating here. So thank you for what you do in terms of helping to up-level folks and introduce it to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jason, how can folks connect with you, either through your school community or on LinkedIn? What's the best way for folks to connect with you?
Yeah. So the school community, it is a free community. You have to apply, which just means it's like answering 3 quick questions. because it is a private community. So I try to, keep folks out that don't look like they're serious about it or they just want to get in there and sell stuff. The easiest way, you can go to aimarketingforum.com, and that's just my website. And the first button you'll see is a way to join that community. You can skip the website altogether. This is like, what most marketers don't want to say, but you can skip the website altogether and just go to school.com/AI marketing. And school is spelled SKOOL.com/AI marketing. And that'll take you straight to the join page. And you can do that. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just do a search for Jason Cormier. You'll see me, I'm sure. And I'm happy to, if I can help any of your audience in any way, I'm happy to do it. And I appreciate you providing the platform for me to come on and talk about some of this stuff today.
Of course, it's been my pleasure, Jason. And appreciate you sharing some of your insights, your journey, and, our audience members. I'm hoping that they can take away a lot of gems. I know I have. So it's been a pleasure talking with you, Jason.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Eric. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.